Chapter 951. Alive. What? Xianxia jumped, startled by Jiu King who was beside him. Jiu King's former body was tens of meters long, but it had grown into a slithery mass tenfold longer than before, with a sharp increase in strength as Jian Wushuang absorbed 30% of blood ascent's power and had 4 stars agglomerated between his eyebrows. By now, Jiu King's massive trunk coiled not far away from Xianxia, his jaws baring in a wide and wicked grin. The divine rays of the 9 tunes technique of the Plenilune's secret skills. Jiu King emitted a deafening howl. His wide-opened mouth glowed brightly in red with bloodthirsty malice, and he hurled himself towards Xianxia. Swish! The red glow flaring from his mouth formed a streaking crimson flash as it shot straight at Xianxia at great speeds, aiming at the latter's head. This is bad. Panic and fear instantly swept across Xianxia's mangled face. Overcome by horror, he staggered backward. Xianxia managed to keep himself out of the way of the flaming serpentine behemoth charging at him, but his lurch backward was also his undoing. It had sent him into the path of Jian Wushuang's finger, the world-shattering technique. Die, Xianxia, you filthy mongrel! Jian Wushuang's roar echoed loudly. Rumble! The finger technique that could shudder even the foundations of the world has appeared. The world-shattering technique. A gigantic finger of gold struck heavily upon Xianxia, releasing the powerful ancient god power contained within its stroke. No! Xianxia gave a terrifying shriek, his eyes utterly wide with shock as the gargantuan finger of gold crushed down on him. The golden finger pushed and flattened Xianxia, delving deep into the ground. Bang! A huge crater was formed where the golden finger had struck. A huge hole was in the center of the crater where the finger had burrowed, growing larger as the huge force continued tunneling downwards. The grounds began to shake and the sky began to tremble. But everything fell into a pale and deathly silence. The entire surrounding had been engulfed by a huge and strong cyclonic turbulence of raw energy. So great and terrible was the tempestuous storm of crude energies that even the Tao masters from both sides of the battle panicked and retreated at once. It was only when the storm had ended did anyone dare to venture a slight peek. But the quick peek rendered everyone stunned. The great and majestic royal palace was no more. What remained at where it stood before was but a wide and frightening pit, which depths extended far into the unknown reaches of the darkness. The site where the entire royal city had once stood had been reduced into a bottomless abyss. Deep at the bottom of the pit, there was nothing but ruins and rubble. Stunning! The same sensation of amazement and awe crept into the hearts of everyone present. Suddenly, a jet of blood-red stream shot from the bottom of the pit. One could hardly miss the vestiges of life in it, albeit panic and hysterical, as the blood-red jet escaped from the pit and flew towards the encampment of the Xia clan. The blood-red stream fell into a blob of bloody mass beside Xia Dao before it formed into the figure of a person. The person has hair of snowy white, despite having a few remaining grue and silvery hairs which were once testament of his youth and vigor. His face turned gnarled and wrinkled as if the long years his toil and torments of life have caught up with him. His dry and rumpled skin was drenched in blood. But most disheartening of all was his aura. It was feeble and pitiful. So feeble that it was not even the strength of a Tao master. These were the signs of one who had death looming over him. But everyone around him was gripped by fear and horror, for they had identified him, Xianxia, the ancestor of the Xia clan. The greatest warrior of the entire Xia clan. Ancestor! The host of warriors of the Xia clan were startled and angered at the wretched state rendered to their ancestor, Xianxia. Xianxia had always remained as a legend even amongst the folk of their kin. A legend who had always been unbeatable and indomitable against foes of any kind. Even the Tang Empire of the East, during their golden age where the 4 great emperors reigned as one, had to fear their influence and might due to the dominance of their ancestor, Xianxia. Yet, who would have expected that the living legend of the Xia clan had been battered to such insignificance? The foe whom their ancestor was fighting against was but a mere warrior of the Eternal Realm. How did a warrior of the Eternal Realm pummel a holy master into such a wreck? How was this even possible? It was the very same questions looming in the minds of everyone present. Xianxia's face was flushed with a burning red shade that he looked as if he could almost bleed from his face. His hateful stare remained transfixed upon the center of the huge pit from whence he emerged. A figure appeared from the depths. That was a lumbering giant, towering at more than tens of meters tall. His skin glazed with a golden blush, and underneath his feet was a worm beast more than hundreds of meters long with countless tendrils that exuded a powerful and staggering presence. That mongrel pup, to think that I have nearly fallen by his hands. Xianxia clenched his fists tightly with hatred as his eyes burned with rage. Standing over the gargantuan trunk of Jiyu King, the resentment that filled Jian Wushuang had barely diminished. Embers of anger still burned in his golden eyes, which were trained at Xianxia's direction. That stroke earlier did not kill him. Jian Wushuang thought bitterly. That must be a quaint and unique technique that he used to save himself. But it must surely have come at a terrible price. Look at him. Look at how weakened he is now. He will never regain his power, not in tens of thousands of years, or even longer. Jiyu King's voice rumbled in his mind. The greater one was, the harder one fell, and it would be harder still for that one to climb back up. This was like King Jiyu Tong, who had been seriously injured and his power diminished. For many years he had been trying to regain his strength, as he chose to remain only within the confines of the stronghold of the ancient sect. But for so long, he had merely regained 1/10 of his former strength. Xianxia must die. Jian Wushuang's eyes flared with contempt and hate. But he had only begun to move when his body shook and convulsed suddenly with pain. He vomited a huge mouthful of blood as a strong, stabbing agony rose from the deepest parts of his body. This is madness, Jian Wushuang. The Jiyu King warned frantically. The essence blood of King Luozhan is a most potent substance that bestows upon you powers way beyond that of yours for a short duration. But the price that follows its use is hardly one that you can easily bear. Look at you now. You are at your limits. There is no way you can continue fighting. Retreat for now. Never. Jian Wushuang howled with anger, his eyes gleaming in red. Much of his consciousness and sanity have left him, eroded by immeasurable bloodthirstiness and rage. This ends today. I will slay Xianxia and completely decimate the entire Xia clan, even if it costs my life. This is for Lang Rushuang. There was nothing but steely resolve in his voice that thundered across the land. With all the consciousness and strength he could muster, he set his aims for the essence blood of King Luozhan. He intended to consume more essence blood to further enhance himself. Don't be rash, Jian Wushuang. Calm yourself. Your lover, she is still alive. Jian Wushuang froze instantly where he stood as the Jiyu King's frantic pleas reverberated continuously in his mind. Chapter 952, Refuse to Yield. Alive. Jian Wushuang froze with disbelief. She is still alive. See for yourself. Jiyu King cried at him. His gaze turned instinctively towards Lang Rushuang, who was gliding in the air not far away. In her white flowing robes badly stained by blood, Lang Rushuang floated in the air silently. Layers of energy barriers encompassed around her. They were cast by Jian Wushuang during his battle with Xianxia to prevent her from being struck by their blows. But now that Jian Wushuang could look closely at her, he found that she was still alive. Despite her frail and severely fragile aura, it was clear that she was hardly in mortal danger. She is really alive. A manic joy gleamed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. HMPH. She is the great primordial sinner. Never will she perish so easily. But she would be, if you intend to dawdle any longer. Jiyu King smirked, slightly peeved. Jian Wushuang calmed himself. Lang Rushuang's well-being would take precedence for now. The matter of Xianxia would have to wait. He flew to Lang Rushuang and cradled her in his arms. Into her body, Jiyu King. Heal her now. Jian Wushuang urged. The healing abilities of a plenilune could restore the heal of not only itself and its host, but others as well. It was during his time with the ancient god clan when the clansman had allowed a plenilune to enter his body and heal him. Into her? Nay. I may be willing to heal any other save for her. She is the great primordial sinner. She bears the burden of heavy sacrilege. I might perish if I were to possess her. Jiyu King explained exasperatedly before he continued. Fret not. She will not die as long as I am present. This made Jian Wushuang felt better as he nodded wordlessly. He looked towards his senior brother, Xue Lingtian. Xue Lingtian had earlier been injured when he had tried to help Jian Wushuang. But still, his wounds were hardly serious, for he was already back on his feet to begin healing himself. All is well. Senior brother is safe. Jian Wushuang exhaled in relief. He would be blaming himself for eternity if Leng Rushuang and his senior brother were to have given their lives for him. Jian Wushuang then turned and looked around the chaos surrounding him. At some distance away from him, King Jiyu Tong was still fighting ferociously against the national master that none could tell who was gaining the upper hand. But the battle waging around them was reaching its conclusion. The factions led by Emperor Leng and the Xia clan had assumed that victory would be theirs since Xia Yong had joined the battle. But never had they expected that the great and powerful Xia Yong would have fallen so ignominiously in the hands of Jian Wushuang, a mere warrior of the Eternal Realm. Instead, the tide of battle had tipped against their favor, with only Emperor Lang, Xia Dao, Xia Ming, and few other warriors holding their front line. Still, defeat seemed inevitable. How could this be? Why is the situation so dire? This is impossible. The eyes of Emperor Lang burned red as all vestiges of composure had all but left her. Her eyes studied frantically the battle raging around her as she fought, but she could hardly suppress the dread and anxiety rising in her mind. The shame was simply impossible for her to stomach. For many years I have prepared and planned only for this moment. I simply refuse to be thwarted here. Never. I refuse to yield to this Emperor Xiao. National Master. National Master. Emperor Lang howled maniacally suddenly, a shrilling cry that resounded so greatly that everyone stopped in their tracks to look at her. Farthest away, King Jiyu Tong was still exchanging blows furiously against the soothsayer. As a 7-star imperial god, King Jiyu Tong still wielded powerful strength of his own, even if his power was but a mere fraction of what it was before. Moreover, King Jiyu Tong had a plethora of ancient god secret skills at his disposal which made him an extraordinarily dangerous foe. The soothsayer was hardly a match for one so powerful and dangerous like King Jiyu Tong. But he had the blood-killing plate armor which had given him an edge against his opponent. The overall strength of them both was so great that they had exceeded the levels of Dao Master. Their battle was equally gritting and fierce that not even Jian Wushuang's defeat of Xia Yong could match its intensity and brutality. No one dared to approach them for fear of being caught between their blows that a ring of desolation and barrenness spanning thousands of kilometers surrounded them. The wailing shrieks of Emperor Leng reached to them, rousing the soothsayer from his bloodlust frenzy. Xia Yong had lost to a young pup. Hopeless filth. The soothsayer cursed from his heart. In a fleeting moment of consciousness, King Jiyu Tong stole a glance at Jian Wushuang. The ends of his lips curled into an encouraging smile. This fledgling has done well indeed. To think that he bears the imperial bloodline as well. Think of something, National Master. We cannot lose. Emperor Leng's frantic cries resounded from afar once more. Think of something. The soothsayer turned dismal and sullen as he raked his mind for solutions in the midst of the savage duel against his foe. Suddenly his eyes twinkled and he sent a silent message via telepathy to Emperor Leng. Quick! Activate the formation. The formation? Now! The Emperor stammered with doubt. But I am not ready. We can afford to wait no more. You will still be able to regain some advantage even if you are not ready. Otherwise, all is lost and all our efforts will be for naught. The soothsayer urged and screamed. No more doubts. Quick! Emperor Leng could only frown with a throbbing anxiety. A strong and stout woman who had endured countless trials and tribulations to seize power as an empress of a strong empire, she was hardly an indecisive and tentative person. With a few calculations, she swiftly came to a decision. Very well, I will activate the formation now. Emperor Lang responded to him telepathically. It should be so. The soothsayer replied approvingly with a wicked grin. At the other side of the battlefield, Emperor Lang was still defending herself against the unforgiving blows of Emperor Xiao. She leaped backward and fled, stopping halfway in midair after flying for some time. Are you ready, Xia Yong? Emperor Lang shot a glance at the pale and crippled Xia Yong. From behind the backs of his kinsmen protecting him, Xianxia heard the call of the Empress. His lips twitched with anticipation. Is it time finally? Xianxia's expression turned dark and cruel, his eyes sparkled with apprehension. I may be weakened and the preparations are not yet complete, but I do not think we can wait any longer. We must strike now. Begin the sequence. Xianxia responded her call and his body began to convulse violently. High above in the air, Emperor Lung's face became intense as many Dao masters around her had their sights set upon her. With a flick of her wrist, a golden token appeared in her hand. A strange and unusual aura permeated from the token. Emperor Lung steeled herself with renewed resolve. With her teeth gritted, she crushed the token in her hand. Chapter 953, The 36 Diabolic Pillars. As soon as the jade token crumbled into pieces, a huge wave of energy rippled from within it, rolling furiously into all directions. The Dao master warriors of Emperor Xiao's forces could not help but feel a foreboding dread. But Emperor Lang and Xianxia instead wore an expression of maniacal delirium. Far away from them, the soothsayer could hardly suppress a malicious smile. His eyes burned with bloodthirsty craving. The 3060 prefectures of the Tang Empire of the East. This was the Anyong Prefecture, one of the 36 prefectures. Situated hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the site of the battle at the Imperial City, the Anyong Prefecture was peaceful and silent. Even the governor of the prefecture, despite having received word of the battle waging in the Imperial City, had no intentions of dipping his finger into the murky waters by aligning himself with Emperor Lang or Emperor Xiao. Yet despite the tranquil peace, suddenly, buzz! The grounds of the Anyong Prefecture began to shake violently. What is happening? What is going on? There has been word of a huge battle taking place in the Imperial City. Could it be that the scourge of war has reached us? Terrified cries and shouts resounded across the cities in the Anyong Prefecture. Panic and chaos were everywhere, yet none knew what was happening. Even the governor of the prefecture himself was bewildered and shocked. But the strongest tremor took place in a huge castle in the middle of the Anyong Prefecture. Cracks began to form on the ground at the centermost part of the castle as if something was burrowing from the ground, fighting to see the light of day. It did not take long for the unknown item to show itself, protruding from the broken earth. It was a stone column, fully black in color with numerous mystic engravings and runic scripts adorning its structure. The black obsidian monolith radiated an ancient and yet evil aura. It was so huge that it almost took up 1/10 of the entire breadth of the castle grounds. After rising sharply from the ground, it kept rising at an incredible speed, and finally stopped till it rose to tens of thousands of feet high. Towering at tens of thousands of feet high, the huge, elaborately decorated obelisk stood silently at the center of the castle grounds. Its sudden emergence from underground attracted many bystanders and warriors who were defending the castle. In the midst of their confusion, it sparkled dangerously. The flash of gray light began to enlarge and stretch further and further that the eerie luminescence engulfed the entire castle. But its hunger was hardly satiated as the evil brightness began to lengthen its reach farther and farther. Before long, the entire Anyong Prefecture was bathed in the creepy and uncanny illumination. But the strange and eerie gray light did not stop, its penchant for more fueling its growth to expand larger and larger. But it was not only Anyong Prefecture. Monolithic obsidian black obelisks began to sprout from the center of each and every prefecture of the 36 prefectures, all of which were similarly embellished with mystical engravings and runic scripts. 36 obelisks for all 3060 prefectures of the Tang Empire of the East. Each of the gargantuan stone columns released the same gray-colored illumination that expanded wider and wider with a voracious zeal. In the blink of an eye, the gray lights from each prefecture overlapped and swallowed the lands of the Tang Empire of the East whole. The multitudes of warriors in the 36 prefectures were shocked and startled as the gigantesque magical formation comprising of the huge blanketing lights came into shape. Bewildered and astonished, the warriors within the vicinity did not know the purpose of the magical formation. But their answers were swiftly answered as they found that the magical formation was, in fact, an incredibly huge barrier that cut off the entire Tang Empire of the East from the outside world. Those within the barrier could not leave the confines of the barrier, much less communicating with anyone outside. What is happening? Pandemonium swept the entire empire as hundreds of millions of martial practitioners and warriors fell into panic and disarray. As anticipated, the colossal barrier encompassing the empire had also included what was left of the imperial city. The sudden emergence of the grey, glimmering shrouds above their heads left many Dao masters of both sides of the battle stopped in their tracks to look above at the sky, perplexed and puzzled. But both Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun immediately grew alarmed and shocked. "You evil bitch! How dare you?" Emperor Xiao roared, his eyes blazing angrily. "Ha ha ha ha! I have passed the point of no return. I will accept no defeat or failure." Emperor Lang hissed insidiously. "Blasted woman!" Emperor Xiao exclaimed as he felt himself shuddering violently. Emperor Lang merely chuckled. Xianxia had come over to her, standing right by her side. They stood together and looked into the sky, their eyes flickering with a deranged gleam. "Long have I labored to have the 36 diabolic pillars furnished and readied. Finally, it is time for me to reap the harvest," Emperor Lang said with a deep and distant look in her eyes that hemmed with no less frenzy. "Long have we waited. At long last." Xianxia cried passionately. But around them across the battlefield, the horde of warriors and soldiers could not understand what was happening, until they saw a surging wave of golden aura rushing from the distant sky. That is luck. There is no mistaking it. That is luck. The luck and fortune of the empire which has accumulated for centuries. Flashes of alarmed horror splayed across the faces of each and every warrior across the entire battleground. Jiu King's voice rang with anxiety suddenly in Jian Wushuang's mind. Could that be? Luck. Luck. What is luck? Jian Wushuang asked, confused and surprised. Luck is an ethereal substance that exists in this world. Jiu King explained hastily, each and every one of us bears a certain amount of luck. It is the volume of the amount that varies between each person. Those blessed with great luck will find themselves fortunate and bountiful in all their endeavors. More often than not, the opportunities they encounter will most likely be rewarding than detrimental, unlike those that have lesser luck. Your success in employing methods of inverse cultivation and the awakening of the ancient godly bloodline, as well as the abundance of martial skills and treasures that have been showered upon you, are all due to your extraordinary luck. To a warrior, luck has an extremely powerful influence. Yet, in a much larger proportion, luck itself holds the key to the rise and fall of a nation or an empire. The luck and fortune of this empire, accumulated and amassed for all the centuries it has endured, is way beyond your imagination. These people you are fighting against are vying for it. The luck of the Tang Empire. Was the betrothal arranged by Emperor Lang and the Xia clan, as well as the rift between her and Emperor Xiao, part of this, a strife in pursuit of luck? But even with greater luck, she would at most endow herself with richer and more plentiful blessings? Is this even worth all the lives lost in battle? That is because you have yet to reach the level of Dao Master. Your current powers do not allow you the heightened acuteness to fully perceive the substance of luck. But when you are a Dao Master, especially who has reached the pinnacle of the Dao Master level, then you will know why. The Jiu King remarked cryptically. Chapter 954, Life-Devouring Formation. To those peak Dao Masters, luck not only increases their chances of obtaining opportunities and treasures, but their strength as well. Moreover, they can even force their way through a bottleneck if they accumulate enough luck, Jiu King said. These people ought to have made plenty of preparation before, using a special formation to gather all the luck of the Tang Kingdom of the East for their own use. The luck will bring them great advantages while the Tang Kingdom will meet its demise. I understand now. Jian Wushuang nodded, awe flitting across his face. No wonder Lord of Circis Island would accuse Emperor Lang of going against the peace of the world. No wonder Emperor Yun would choose to station here in Emperor Xiao's camp. It turned out that Emperor Lang had set her sights on the Tang Kingdom of the East. After all, a country who had lost all its luck would be a country waiting for its demise. Hovering in the void above, Emperor Xiao and the others all appeared pale. Emperor of Tang had founded the Tang Kingdom of the East with a certain great skill, and in the many years after, they had always sought ways to expand and strengthen the kingdom. Yet, Emperor Lang had tried to rob the Tang Kingdom of its luck for her own benefit. Back then, Emperor Xiao had broken off any friendship with Emperor Lang precisely because he had discovered the latter's treachery. Their relationship worsened to the point that a war broke out between them. "You lowly bastard, how can you answer to your master after your actions today?" Emperor Xiao said with a snort. "Humph. It's just a little bit of luck. Once I make a breakthrough, I'll find a way to reinvigorate the Tang Kingdom or just directly establish a better and stronger country," Emperor Lang replied coldly. The experts from Emperor Xiao's camp immediately flew into a rage after hearing his words. Even so, Emperor Lang could no longer worry about trivialities like these. She stared at the majestic luck that was piling up with a pair of crazed eyes. Out of nowhere. Emperor Lang frowned. "That's..." Xianxia's expression abruptly shifted. They detected a hint of a different sort of force within the flow of the majestic luck. Not only was this development beyond their expectations, but they also noticed how special this force was. "No, this isn't right." Jiu Qing's alarmed voice suddenly resounded. "What's wrong?" Jian Wushuang immediately asked. "It's not just the luck of the Tang Kingdom. There's also a different kind of force. Since I can't see the force, I believe it's the natural power of all things in the universe. Moreover, there's a lot of it, too many of it." Jiu Qing's voice carried a hint of shock. "Natural power?" Jian Wushuang was equally as stunned. He appeared familiar with this so-called natural power. Back when he just obtained the heavenly creation skill in the ancient world, he earned not only a technique but a secret skill as well. It was the soul-devouring secret skill. To him back then, the soul-devouring secret skill was a skill that defied the natural order. It was used to absorb the natural power of all things in the universe. He had depended on this skill to survive many perilous situations in the ancient world. Unfortunately, the skill lost a lot of its use to him after he arrived in the eternal world. Up in the void, Emperor Lang and Xianxia had already noticed that something was off. The former immediately cried, "National Master, what's happening?" "What's happening? You're only asking me now what's happening when the situation has come to this." Though there was a fire burning in the old soothsayer's eyes, he was wearing an evil smile. "Emperor Lang, did you really think that the formation I prepared for you is one that gathers luck?" "Keek. I'll tell you honestly that the formation I prepared is one unique to my blood-killing sect, the life-devouring formation." Life-devouring formation. Shock swept the many Dao masters on the battlefield. Even if most of them had no idea what the formation was capable of, they could tell just from the name alone that it would not be anything good. I understand it all." Jiu Qing's voice reverberated in Jian Wushuang's heart. I did wonder why he would have the blood-killing plate armor. So he's a member of the blood-killing sect. Blood-killing sect. Jian Wushuang was confused. It's a nefarious sect that is a near-universal enemy. Each of its members is undoubtedly a great demon. They know many evil formations and the soul-devouring formation is one of them, Jiu Qing explained. The formation could forcefully refine all the natural power within its scope. It targets not only the natural power of the earth, it encompasses flora, fauna, and even humans. Everything that has vitality will be forcefully refined. If this formation has really enveloped the entire Tang Kingdom, then this is truly the end. The Tang Kingdom is over. There is not even the smallest room for struggle. Not only will the country be reduced into a dead land, but every cultivator within the scope of the formation will also die after being wrung dry. Jian Wushuang was startled. "What are you saying? The entire Tang Kingdom will be reduced into a dead land? Everyone would be wrung dry? Don't doubt my words. The formation of the blood-killing sect is this evil. It doesn't take much for them to refine the energy of a soul kingdom," Jiu Qing said. Jian Wushuang's face darkened significantly after hearing his words. Emperor Lang's face was incredibly warped. "National Master, you lied to me." "Keek. I didn't lie to you. The formation can indeed gather all the luck of the Tang Kingdom, but that's not all that it will gather," the old soothsayer said with a manic laugh. "Don't forget that there's a restriction that I left in your body. Aren't you worried that I'll trigger the restriction and kill you?" Emperor Lang asked coldly. Restriction? Oh, I would have forgotten about it if you didn't remind me. I was heavily injured when I first met you. My strength was at its lowest, so bad that my blood-killing plate armor was in a fairly battered state. Back then, I was so weak that I could only run with my tails between my legs in a confrontation with an ordinary Dao master. Naturally, I needed an aide to help me find some natural treasures as well as 99,999 newborns for my recovery. That was why I would especially look for you, the old soothsayer said, looking at Emperor Lang with a cold glint in his eyes. Emperor Lang was stupefied. 99,999 newborns. The many experts present looked at Emperor Lang in shocked anger. There was indeed a period of time many years ago where many newborns were kidnapped in the 36 prefectures of the Tang Kingdom of the East, which led to a great commotion. The Tang royal family had personally investigated the matter but ultimately found no clues. Later on, fewer and fewer cases of kidnapped newborns cropped up until it eventually disappeared. No one knew what became of the incident. It was only now that they discovered that Emperor Lang was behind the many cases of kidnapped babies. Chapter 955, Furor. When I contacted you, the Tang of the East has just undergone a great change. Emperor Qi died and Emperor Yun disappeared without a trace, leaving only you and Emperor Xiao. Internally, the Xia clan was suffering hardship. Externally, the three main countries were suppressing the kingdom. The kingdom was already in jeopardy, but coupled with the fact that you had been harboring wild ambitions all along, you didn't reject my offer, the old soothsayer said with a laugh. Of course, I needed to leave some of my weaknesses in your hands to gain your full trust. That was why I allowed you to plant restriction in me. In the beginning, your restriction impacted me severely when I was still weak. It was to the point that I didn't dare to go against your orders out of fear that you'd kill me in a moment of unhappiness. When Emperor Xiao had a fallout with you after noticing you were stealing the luck of the Tang Kingdom, I obeyed your order to deal with him. You became the sole ruler of the Tang Kingdom after Emperor Xiao was chased off. The subsequent affairs were exactly like what I have told you. You helped me gather a large number of treasures to aid my recovery and used your influence to rope the Xia clan in. Together with the Xia clan, you planted 36 diabolic pillars in the 36 prefectures of the kingdom. Once everything was ready and you two have prepared well enough, you triggered the formation. Ha ha! Everything went according to plan. The only thing is that I didn't expect we would trigger the formation in advance due to this recruitment assembly. However, it doesn't affect my plan much. Keek, you can try activating the restriction you planted in me. See what will happen, the old soothsayer said, chortling coldly. Emperor Lang turned purple in the face. Without hesitation, she activated the restriction she had placed in the old soothsayer's body. Even though she had clearly activated the restriction, the old soothsayer remained standing in place and showed no signs of being affected. How is this possible? Emperor Lang was in deep disbelief. The hearts of the people around her sank to the pits of their stomachs when they saw this. Fool! This woman is really a fool. Jiu King scolded on and on. She's a Dao master who hasn't even become a holy master, yet she dares to make a deal and cooperate with a member of the blood-killing sect. She even personally helped him lay down the soul-devouring formation. No wonder her daughter would be born a great sinner. Foolish. She's foolish to the extreme. She's absolutely the most foolish woman I've ever seen. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes as he heard Jiu King's rant, his gaze steely. Jiu King had previously told him that Lang Rushuang was a primordial great sinner, but it was only now that he understood what exactly a great sinner was. Emperor Lang had evidently gone behind Emperor Xiao's back to lay down the soul-devouring formation and kidnap the many newborns for that national master before giving birth to or while still pregnant with Lang Rushuang. Lang Rushuang had only her mother to blame for being born a great sinner. Ironically, her mother was no more than a manipulated chess piece that reaped no benefit in the end. Bastard! You bastard! Dao Yuanzi, I'm going to kill you! Emperor Lang emitted a furious roar, a sound that shook the world. Her trembling body emanated waves of boundless killing intent. Kill me, just based on your power alone. The old soothsayer glanced at Emperor Lang in disdain. Dao Yuanzi that Emperor Lang had referred to was his real name. Humph. The soul-devouring formation has been activated and I'm its master. Who's qualified to kill me? Dao Yuanzi snorted. Vitality Qi gushed madly toward him and poured into him at a maddening speed. The dense Vitality Qi formed a large, indestructible defensive cover over him in a flash. Underneath the cover, Dao Yuanzi let out a loud, wicked laugh. He then began to frantically absorb the Vitality Qi. Following the incessant inflow of the Vitality Qi into Dao Yuanzi's body, his already terrifying aura began to expand at an alarming speed. Simultaneously, the Tang of the East began to rapidly wither. Many of the flora and fauna of the kingdom also met their demise. Whether it was the many Dao masters on the battlefield or the countless martial artists who had retreated near the imperial palace, all of them could feel the Vitality Qi pouring out of them. Even though the outflow could not be considered as fast, it was not slow either. If they allowed their Vitality Qi to continue flow out of them at this speed, it would take no more than 2 days for them to be wrung dry. The Dao masters would not be able to last any longer either. This scene gave rise to shock and fury in everyone present. The spectating experts had sat firmly on the fence while watching the battle between both armies. However, Dao Yuanzi's actions now directly threatened their survival. Naturally, they would be infuriated. Dao Yuanzi. Suddenly, someone snorted. The one who spoke was a master who originated from the Void Temple, as was Shui Lingtian. What do you think you're doing? Hurry and stop your actions. If my temple master finds out, he'd definitely kill you. The gray-haired old man's voice was icy cold. Your temple master? Keek, you must be referring to that master of Void Temple. Dao Yuanzi was still wearing a carefree smile. The master of Void Temple is strong but is likely no match for me. Don't you forget that you're all standing inside the soul-devouring formation. There's no way you can get your message out. How can the master of Void Temple know what's going on here? Moreover, even if he knows and really makes it here, what can he do? This formation is indestructible. Never mind a mere master of Void Temple. There's nothing that can be done to this formation even if there are 2 palace masters here. Once I'm done refining all the natural power of the Tang Kingdom and forging the blood cessation demon body, who in this realm can stop me? Dao Yuanzi laughed maniacally, appearing not to regard the master of Void Temple as a worthy opponent. Damn it! The gray-haired old man was terribly angered, but there was nothing that he could do about his situation. Is this the soul-devouring formation of the blood-killing sect? The steely-eyed Jiyu Tong spoke in an honest and ancient sort of voice. The quadrangular star between his brows emanated a dazzling ray of light. Chapter 956. 10% Chance of Success. I've long heard of how wicked and cruel the members of the blood-killing sect can be, but today I finally see it with my own eyes. I wonder if my current strength is enough to completely dismantle the life-devouring formation. Power burst forth from within Jiyu Tong's pupils. The ancient god power began to frantically condense in his thick arm, giving rise to a frightening might. Even if the power had yet to break out entirely, it was enough to draw attention to him. Everyone looked at him in shock. Jiyu King Tong. Dao Yuanzi, who stood under the defensive cover, also looked over at him, a cold glint in his eyes. Jiyu Tong was the only one out of everyone here that he was truly concerned about, for the former was a 7-star imperial god at his peak. He was an existence that Dao Yuanzi must look up to. Even if Jiyu Tong had yet to recover 90% of his strength, he was not one to be underestimated. Jiyu Tong had already made his move. Ancient God secret skill, one-finger extermination. He made a pointing motion with his dark golden arm, the terrifying ancient god power entirely condensed on the index finger on his right hand. His index finger contained the ultimate power that Jiyu King Tong could currently summon. It was also the strongest secret skill that Jiyu King Tong could currently unleash. The world would instantly perish once he pointed with his index finger. His terrifying power soon enveloped the defensive cover that shielded Dao Yuanzi. Come on. Come at me. Dao Yuanzi also wore a crazed smile on his face but showed not even the slightest hint of fear. Bang! The entire sky collapsed and the vast empty space in its place filled itself with the battlefield. Jiyu Tong's might was devastating. Even so, Dao Yuanzi remained still in the center of this might. The defensive cover that enveloped him remained intact. It's still intact. Jiyu Tong frowned with a dark golden lightning flashing in his pupils. Ha ha. It's useless. Dao Yuanzi's manic laughter echoed all around. Jiyu King Tong, this life-devouring formation certainly won't pose much of a problem had you been at your peak. However, you don't even have 10% of your strength back then, and you might not even be able to win the Master of Void Temple. You wish to shatter my defensive cover with your current power? What a joke. Jiyu Tong looked coldly at him before shaking his head secretly. I can't do anything about this formation. Despite trying his best, he was still helpless against Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover. Naturally, there was nothing he could do about the formation as well. Everyone around him paled after seeing this scene. If even the strongest of them all, Jiyu Tong, could not do anything about Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover and formation, what could they even do? Are we going to just die within this defensive cover? It was uncertain who was the first to speak, but in the next moment, a commotion swept the crowd. The many martial artists present looked frightened. To them, death was not a terrifying outcome. However, it would be a total nightmare if they were to be refined while still alive and forced to watch helplessly as their life energy was drained out of them. You bitch! This is all your fault. Emperor Xiao's eyes flashed dangerously as he glared fixedly at Emperor Lang. While Emperor Lang felt intense anger and hatred, she was mostly at a loss. She felt helpless. Surely, no one would not be able to do anything about this if even the strongest of them all, Jiyu Tong, was helpless. They could only watch as Dao Yuanzi drained their life energy out of them. We're just waiting to die. The same thought surfaced on everyone's minds. The only thing that they could do now was to wait for death to arrive. They could only wait for the life-devouring formation to refine their life energy while they were still alive, and for Dao Yuanzi to use the energy to forge his so-called blood cessation demon body. Most of them had completely given up hope. Jiyu King, is it true that I can dismantle the life-devouring formation as long as I shatter Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover? Jian Wushuang was holding Leng Rushuang in his embrace, but in his head, he was having a conversation with Jiyu King's consciousness. What are you planning to do? Jiyu King asked. I remember you once said that I can forcefully swallow the drop of blood essence in the event of certain death and try to fight for a chance of survival from there. Jin Wushuang said calmly. Oh. Jian Wushuang's expression shifted. If you do as I say, I can guarantee that you can take your little girlfriend and storm out of this formation alive, Jiyu King said. Just us both? What about the rest? Jian Wushuang asked. You still have the mood to think about others under such circumstances? You're better off worrying about yourself, Jiyu King scolded. How good are my chances if I gain strength from absorbing the blood essence and shatter Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover? Jian Wushuang once again asked. Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover can't be underestimated, for it's carved out of the life-devouring formation. Even Jiyu King Tong was unable to cause any damage to it after using all of his strength. That's how strong it is. If you gain a short-term explosive growth in strength after absorbing the blood essence, you might be stronger than Jiyu King Tong. But you stand at most a 10% chance of shattering Dao Yuanzi's defensive cover. Jiyu King said solemnly. 10%. Jian Wushuang muttered. However, he appeared to have made up his mind. That's enough. Jiyu King was stunned. What are you saying, Jian Wushuang? If you tell me there's not even the slightest chance of success, maybe I would listen to you and escape with Leng Rushuang. But my senior brother Emperor Xiao and Di Jing, who I'm indebted to, and my two brothers for life are all trapped in this defensive cover. There are also still countless innocent people still here. For them. Never mind a 10% chance, even a 1% chance is enough for me to go all out and fight for our survival. Jian Wushuang's voice was icy cold and carried an unprecedented sense of determination. Relationships had always mattered to him the most. Be it brotherhood, or those he was indebted to. He also cared for those who once watched over him or even saved his life back then. He had burned these memories deep into his mind. Now that he knew he still had a shred of chance, he could still give it his all and try to fight for everyone's survival. He did not care if he would have to pay a steep price for his attempt or that there was a mere 10% chance of success. He would make good use of the chance anyway. He could not bring himself to ignore his two brothers, his senior brother, Emperor Xiao, and the others, and escape with Lang Rushuang. Have you already made up your mind? Jiyu King asked solemnly. Considering the current situation, he did not try to persuade Jian Wushuang. He respected Jian Wushuang's choice. Jiyu King, should I fail, please find a way to leave this place with Lang Rushuang. Chapter 957, Earth-Shattering Roar. Jiyu King, should I fail, please find a way to leave this place with Lang Rushuang. When Jian Wushuang's placid voice rang in Jiyu King's mind, he could sense Jian Wushuang's buried determination. I'll try my best. Jiyu King nodded solemnly. Jian Wushuang smiled, but his gaze was resting on Lang Rushuang, who was in his embrace. He lowered his head and planted a gentle kiss on her lips. Then, he placed her on Jiyu King's back. Then he closed his eyes. The blood essence that originated from 8-star imperial god King Luozhan was enveloped in his inexhaustible force of blood vessels. There was only 70% of it left. He took in a deep breath and promptly allowed the force of blood vessels to wash over the drop of blood essence. He did not hesitate and engulfed the blood essence in one go. He forcefully absorbed the 70% left of the blood essence. Kaboom! An unprecedented strong ancient god power exploded within Jian Wushuang. This ancient god power gushed out of his body and sent shockwaves throughout the world. The helpless souls who had lost all hope turned to look at him in alarm. They were deeply startled when they noticed the terrifying power coming from Jian Wushuang. Unprecedented, aghast expressions appeared on their faces. They could tell that the power bursting out of Jian Wushuang was far stronger than what came out of King Jiyu Tong. Jian Wushuang, Emperor Xiao, Emperor Yun, and the rest stared at Jian Wushuang. They once again gained a renewed sense of hope after witnessing Jian Wushuang's enormous power. Even if that hope was so pathetically minuscule, it was enough to get their hearts thumping wildly. What they were seeing was a youngster in the eternal realm, but he was someone who had created countless miracles on this battlefield. He had already displayed the shockingly powerful magic weapon pavilion that contained 103,800 emperor weapons during the battle in the recruitment assembly. Then, with his eternal realm cultivation, he fought Xianxia, the genius from the eternal world who was already a Dao master. He used his thunderbolt skill to deliver Xianxia such a crushing defeat that he nearly killed the latter. When the war subsequently broke out, he alone confronted 3 Dao masters and used one move to kill one of them. Then, the immortal army of the Xia clan was dispatched and immediately turned the tides of the battlefield to their side. Emperor Xiao's army was forced to retreat little by little. It was at that moment that Jian Wushuang once again appeared to help Emperor Xiao to capture that enormous worm beast. Jian Wushuang had unleashed a terrifying consciousness attack and sound wave attack. Once the sound wave died, the immortal army of the Xia clan all perished and the situation soon favored Emperor Xiao's side again. Jian Wushuang had turned the situation on its end with a single, smooth move. Just earlier, Xia Yong, the Dao master as well as the strongest factor that the Xia clan had relied on for so many years, had joined the battle. Ultimately, it was still Jian Wushuang, mere eternal realm dweller, who used some kind of trick to produce an unbelievably mighty power. He unleashed 3 pointers in succession, each one stronger than the one before. Xia Yong suffered such a crushing defeat that he had to pay a steep price to use a life-saving secret skill just to keep himself alive. Everything that had happened could be dubbed a series of miracles, yet they all happened to him alone. Jian Wushuang was now once again making a shocking move in a time where others were despairing about the life-devouring formation and resigning themselves to their deaths. Would he be able to create yet another unbelievable miracle? Over in the camp of the Xia clan, there was a gathering of surviving experts who were staring at Jian Wushuang. What kind of a trouble can that lowly beast create at this stage? Could he really kill that Dao Yuanzi? I doubt it. Xia Dao said coldly. I really hope that he'd succeed. Xia Yong stood at the rear of the camp as he stared coolly at Jian Wushuang. If he really manages to kill Dao Yuanzi, then he'd be saving us all. Our grudge, on the other hand. Humph. I bet he has to pay quite a steep price for all those moves he used. Even if he really kills Dao Yuanzi, I'm sure he'll lose his life as well. That saves us the trouble of taking revenge on him. Countless gazes that harbored anticipation and all sorts of complicated emotions were focused on Jian Wushuang. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang was experiencing overwhelmingly great changes in his body. After forcefully absorbing all of the remaining blood essence from King Luozhan, he felt the majestic ancient god power coursing violently through his body. The unprecedented impact on his body made him clench his teeth as he endured the intense pain within. It took him a great effort to control the ancient god power. Others would only be able to detect that his strength had exploded several times over. The quadrangular star imprinted in his midbrows once again transformed. When he tried to engulf 30% of the blood essence in the past, he had merely reached the peak of 4-star level. However, there was now another star that had condensed in his midbrows. Then yet another one appeared. The changes in Jian Wushuang showed no sign of stopping, and the remaining ancient god power frantically created a final star, making it the 7th star. However, the 7th star failed to be fully condensed and left only an illusory shadow on his skin. 6 stars. 6-star Imperial Ancient God. He was even so close to becoming a 7-star Imperial Ancient God. This was the kind of short-term strength that Jian Wushuang gained after forcefully engulfing the drop of blood essence. He currently had his eyes closed as his body trembled ever so slightly because of the intense pain that he felt. What's wrong with him? There were countless people who had their gazes firmly planted on Jian Wushuang. Even Dao Yuanzi, who stood safely under his defensive cover, could not help looking over at him. Finally, Jian Wushuang opened his eyes. The moment his eyelids flew open, a dark golden thunderlight that seemed capable of ravaging the earth flitted across his pupils. Roar! The piercing pain, unlike any that he had ever felt before, caused him to involuntarily let out a roar. It was a roar that was enough to shock every living creature in the world. The roar contained Jian Wushuang's determination to save his brothers, senior brother, and his savior Emperor Xiao, even if it meant his death. It was simultaneously a roar that came out of the millions of innocent folks, directed at Dao Yuanzi. The roar startled the world and petrified heaven. It swept the 8 desolate lands and looked down upon all living in this world. Even more importantly, it signified an anger that Jian Wushuang had never experienced. This roar reached all the way up to the 9 heavens. It charged forward, all while carrying the ancient god power that had leaked out of Jian Wushuang. Standing in front of Jian Wushuang was none other than the group of experts from the Xia clan. The sound wave imbued with ancient god power washed over them. No! The several great experts of the Xia clan, including the most powerful one of them all, Xia Yong, emitted blood-curdling screeches. Then, their bodies that were enveloped in the sound wave began to shatter like pieces of paper. When the roar subsided, the place where the Xia clan experts had stood was entirely empty. Ancestor Xia Yong, the current master of the clan, Xia Dao, as well as his heir, Xia Ming, had all vanished within the roar. Chapter 958. Mountain and Rivers as the Palm, 9 Continents as the Seal. The earth-shattering roar lingered in the world, dissipating only after a long time had passed. The countless martial artists present felt a jolt down their spirits after hearing the roar. They were shaking from the bottom of their hearts. A mere roar from him had vanquished the top Dao masters of the Xia clan, including the holy master Xia Yong. What kind of absurd strength was this? 6-star Supreme Ancient God? Even approaching the 7-star level. Even Jiyu Tong, who was a 7-star Imperial Ancient God, could not help feeling startled after seeing this scene. I understand now. This youngster was likely harboring a drop of blood essence that one of the ancient gods left behind, and that ancient god must be particularly strong, perhaps much stronger than me at my peak. What a pity! With such a drop of blood essence, he would have become a 6-star Imperial Ancient God in the future at the very least. But now that he has forcefully engulfed it, he has completely wasted it. Not only that, it's hard to say if he'll even survive it. Jiyu Tong quietly muttered to himself. Yet he also understood that Jian Wushuang had no other choice under the current circumstances. His only option was to forcefully engulf the ancient god power in the drop of blood essence and fight for a chance of survival. Unfortunately, only one person can refine the imparted drop of blood essence. Otherwise, such a powerful drop is enough to help me recover at least half of my strength. It would be so much easier to break out of this life-devouring formation then. But we can only depend on this youngster now, Jiu Tong said to himself. All eyes were on Jian Wushuang. Earlier, they had harbored only a small hope and wished only for Jian Wushuang to create another miracle. Now that they detected his terrifying aura and powerful strength, their hope became more and more intense. Perhaps, just perhaps, Jian Wushuang might be able to create another miracle. Jian Wushuang continued to hover in the void after letting out the roar, feeling the explosive ancient god power within him easing a little. He abruptly raised his head and glared at Dao Yuanzi with a pair of eyes that harbored an intense killing intent. Then, in the next second, he made his move. Jian Wushuang stepped forward, his every step so heavy that it crushed the void. His every step easily spanned 1,000 miles. In just a few steps, he found himself in front of the defensive cover that enveloped Dao Yuanzi. He then threw a punch with his large hand, sending a flowing light flying at Dao Yuanzi. What did he send out? Since everyone was staring fixedly at Jian Wushuang, they had obviously noticed his actions. They wanted to find out what that flying light was. Soon, they saw what it was. The flying light was actually a pitilessly beautiful picture scroll. The picture scroll unveiled itself along with Jian Wushuang's tossing motion and vanished into the world shortly after. Just as everyone was puzzled over Jian Wushuang's actions. Buzz! The strange radiance suddenly flared. The endless blue dome of heaven above them began to undergo changes. What's wrong? What is this? Everyone stared wide-eyed at what was unfolding in the sky, stupefied. Even Dao Yuanzi, who was still under the defensive cover, looked up. They watched as the large and splendid world scroll thoroughly took over the vast sky. The world scroll that covered the entire blue dome of heaven slowly flowed like running water. Everyone stared fixedly at it, and for a moment, they saw a vast and inconceivable world in it. The mountains and rivers in the world made for a breathtaking vista. The most attention-grabbing detail was the 9 continents that stood in 9 different nooks of this immense world. Any of the continents was far larger than the Tang Kingdom of the East, even exceeding that of the entire ancient world. Inside those continents were countless cities and people. The people that lived there were like real living beings, their aura as strong as that of the martial artists of the ancient world. Everyone could not help immersing themselves in the world scroll. Meanwhile, Jian Wushuang was already standing next to Dao Yuanzi. He lifted his right hand and his enhanced ancient god power flowed frantically into his palm. The terrifying power had completely condensed in the hollow of his palm. Jian Wushuang's eyes abruptly focused on Dao Yuanzi. Pale golden light flitted across his pupils. Mountain river map. Mountains and rivers as the palm, 9 continents as the seal. Jian Wushuang paused between each word, which contained a special kind of magical power. One of the 9 continents that were larger than the entire ancient world within the world scroll appeared to have come to life. It even felt as if the continent was slowly emerging out of the scroll as a real entity. Boom! The continent was emerging out of the scroll. It was something unreal, something that existed only in the scroll. Yet it had truly stepped out of the world scroll. The scroll emerged out of the scroll countless times smaller, but it was still large enough to cast a shadow over the imperial palace. The scroll's might was so terrifying that everyone could feel goosebumps. Oh God! What kind of skill is this? He created an entire continent? Or is this a world? It's actually real. Unbelievable. This skill is unbelievable. Voices layered with disbelief and shock reverberated in the air like explosions. Jian Wushuang's terrifying skill had exceeded everyone's imagination. Even experienced and knowledgeable ones like Emperor Xiao, Emperor Yun, and the rest had never seen such an unbelievable skill. How did a continent emerge out of a scroll like it was real? Even Dao Yuanzi was startled when he saw the towering continent that had appeared above his head. This sort of skill had shocked even him. Right at this moment, Jian Wushuang was shrouded in a killing intent so intense that it made others tremble. Dao Yuanzi! The ear-splitting roar burst out of Jian Wushuang's mouth, once again causing a destructive storm in the air. You shouldn't come to this world. You shouldn't lay down this life-devouring formation at the cost of millions of innocent lives just to forge your so-called blood cessation demon body. For the sake of the Tang of the East and the millions of people here, you must die. The Qing province of the 9 provinces act as the seal that split open the heavens. Boom! The continent that originated from the scroll had completely descended on this world. Chapter 959. That's impossible. Translator, Transan editor. Transan, an endless stretch of land, is divided into 9 provinces. The mountains and rivers as my palms, and 9 provinces as seals, creating a world. Jian Wushuang activated the powerful mountain river map. He had received 3 treasures from Xianxia, and this map was the 3rd and most precious one among the 3. The map depicted a vast stretch of land. It was divided into 9 provinces, each containing a magical seal. To master the art of using this magical map, one had to learn a secret skill called 9-province seal. Jian Wushuang had acquired this treasure shortly before the selection ceremony and spent 3 years studying this map and the secret skill before barely mastering the first move of the skill. At that time, however, he had been unable to put that move into use since he did not have enough powers to activate the map. After all, it would consume a huge amount of spiritual power to use a seal on the map. It would consume even more power than Jian Wushuang's 9th heaven sword formation and 3 fingers of the ancient god would. The reason he was able to use this move now was that he had absorbed all the remaining essence blood of King Luo Zhan, which had given him the top-notch 6-star ancient god power. The first move of 9-province seal used Qing province on the map as the seal. Its actual name was Sky-Splitting Seal. Split the heavens! Jian Wushuang shouted, and then a vast continent emerged out of the map. At this moment, both the heavens and the earth were roaring, and all living creatures could not help shuddering. Trillions of living creatures in the 36 prefectures within Tang of the East seemed to feel the emergence of the continent. They were thrilled and began screaming in anger. Jian Wushuang had never been so determined, and his killing intent had never been this strong. Also, he had never used such a mighty move before. He was now fighting for trillions of living creatures in Tang of the East, who were longing for life. They were filled with raging indignation and desperately wanted to kill Dao Yuanzi. They pinned their hope on this magical continent. In an instant, the continent of Qing province pressed down on the defensive cover created by Dao Yuanzi with enormous ferocity. Boom! The brutal force began to twist the space, and the surrounding space quickly shattered into pieces. As the force expanded on the battlefield, the bystanders were compelled to withdraw, leaving only Jian Wushuang and Dao Yuanzi on it. While the ancient god power was rapidly rushing to Jian Wushuang's palms to increase the powers of the Qing province seal, his eyes and palms became red, and his face was crazily twisted. Humph, even if you were a 6-star ancient god, you would never be able to destroy our blood-killing sex life-devouring formation. It's complete now, you can never break it. Dao Yuanzi shouted loudly and assertively under his defensive cover. Life-devouring formation was the most evil formation of the blood-killing sect. Its powers were remarkable. It was indeed impossible for Jian Wushuang to demolish it with just the top-notch 6-star ancient god power. Ha ha, it's useless. No one can stop me from nourishing my blood-killing demon body with the vitality of living creatures in Tang of the East. No one can stop me. As Dao Yuanzi snarled wildly under his defensive cover, the light of the cover got increasingly bright and glaring. No one can stop you. Now, watch this. Jian Wushuang said. His voice sounded like thunder. It covered all the other sounds between earth and sky and was transmitted directly into the ears of Dao Yuanzi. In the meantime, the vast continent of Qing province pressed even harder on Dao Yuanzi's protective cover. The powers of this seal finally surged to their highest level. Crack! Although it was just a slight cracking sound, it still quickly caught the attention of the bystanders. The next moment, they burst into hysterics and could not help cheering. Upon hearing the cracking sound, Dao Yuanzi was frightened to death. That's impossible! That's impossible! Dao Yuanzi shouted loudly and desperately, disbelief evident in his eyes. He had never appeared so scared and panicked since he had begun his cultivation. He couldn't believe what had happened. How come a person who's barely able to wield the 6-star ancient god battle strength with the aid of an external force could crack my 36 diabolic pillars and my life-devouring formation? This is impossible. This is impossible, unless... Dao Yuanzi thought and then suddenly lifted up his head to look at the world map in the sky. This world map looks incredibly fascinating. Is there anything special about it? Its aura seems quite antique and sophisticated. Is it a... Dao Yuanzi wondered. The next moment, he could not help but voice his thought. A chaos divine treasure. This world map is a chaos divine treasure. How is this possible? Dao Yuanzi shouted as if he was going mad. In his eyes, the entire world now looked unbelievably crazy. That's impossible. That's impossible. No one in this realm can own a chaos divine treasure. He shouted furiously, his heart and his whole body shaking violently with fear. He was confident that Jian Wushuang would never be able to demolish his life-devouring formation with the 6-star ancient god battle strength. Nevertheless, he had never expected that the boy had a chaos divine treasure. This chaos divine treasure was even more powerful than his own blood-killing plate armor. As far as he knew, no one in this realm was able to own such a high-level treasure, which was rare in this universe. However, Jian Wushuang showed him such a treasure. Cracks began to appear in many parts of his defensive cover, which meant that it was already on the verge of collapse. No! Dao Yuanzi shouted in horror. Nevertheless, the defensive cover did not follow his instructions anymore. With a loud, crisp cracking sound, it shattered into pieces, leaving him unprotected. Go to hell! Jian Wushuang shouted loudly. The vast continent of Qing province pressed down on Dao Yuanzi with great ferocity, smashing all his bones to pieces. I'll never reconcile.
Never reconcile.
Dao Yuanzi shrieked frantically toward the sky. A moment later, he was pressed deep into the ground by the continent of Qing province. Thus this fight left a huge sinkhole on the battlefield, whose diameter was several thousand kilometers. When the continent of Qing province dispersed in the space, there were absolutely no signs of life at the bottom of the sinkhole. Jian Wushuang stood on the vast battlefield, alone. Everyone and everything between earth and sky were silent. Chapter 960. The End of the Battle. The world map above in the void slowly rolled up and fell down. The 36 diabolic pillars, which were covered with mysterious lines and patterns, suddenly burst open and could no longer suppress the 36 prefectures of Tang of the East. The grey defensive cover above Tang of the East began to disperse. Countless living beings in Tang of the East noticed that the vitality of their lives ceased to drain away. They erupted into cheers. The life-devouring formation has been demolished. Everyone on the battlefield was thrilled too. At this moment, all of them fixed their gaze upon the youth in the center of the huge battlefield. Jian Wushuang stood there alone. He was just a young man with eternal realm. However, it was this youth that had achieved an incredible miracle once again. At this moment, Jian Wushuang also turned his head to look at the crowd, kindly and smilingly. I, Jian Wushuang, never let my relatives and friends down. I never let you down in the past, and I'll never let you down in the future. Jian Wushuang said plainly and somewhat relievedly. Upon hearing that, the crowd burst into a spontaneous cheer. Third brother, shouted Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan. They were particularly excited. They had only been able to stand by and watch the fight during the battles, since they were far beyond their levels. They had been shocked and outraged when seeing Jian Wushuang fall into crisis. Now, when they saw him kill Dao Yuanzi and demolish life-devouring formation, they were so proud that they could not help but ran toward Jian Wushuang. Don't go there, Alchemy Master said and stopped them with his arm outstretched in front of them. Is there anything wrong? Asked Wang Yuan, confusedly. Alchemy Master did not reply, but he wore an exceptionally solemn expression on his face. Not only him, but also the other powerful and wise experts such as Ji Yu Tong, Emperor Xiao and Emperor Yun all discovered that Jian Wushuang did not feel all right. They even believed that he was suffering. He has forced himself to absorb such powerful inheritance essence blood. Jiu Tong sighed secretly. As an expert with Eternal Realm, he can never control such a formidable power. Jian Wushuang. Emperor Xiao sighed, feeling uneasy. His face became pale. Not far away from Jian Wushuang, crouched a large centipede, Jiu King. It also fixed its red eyes upon Jian Wushuang. As for Lang Rushuang, she still remained unconscious. Jiu King had already sent her to Emperor Xiao instead of carrying her on its back. Now that life-devouring formation was demolished, Jiu King did not have to carry her around to keep her safe. Young man, I've advised you not to get involved in this mess. You chose to play the hero yourself. Now, you saved others, but your own life is in great danger now, murmured Jiu King. Jian Wushuang quietly stood at the center of the battlefield, looking calm and collected on the outside, but actually he was resisting a strong impact inside. The ancient god power contained in the inheritance essence blood of King Luo Zhan was eroding his insides. This caused unbearable pains to him and made him feel as if his insides had been set on fire and his bones smashed into pieces. I guess I have no choice now. Jian Wushuang thought with a bitter smile on his face. Boom! His huge body shook and exploded into a dense blood fog in front of everyone. Drops of blood began to fall toward the center of the battlefield, giving everyone present a shock. Third brother. Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan were overwhelmed by the sadness. Junior brother. Xue Lingtian turned pale with fright. Right at this moment, excitement suddenly flickered within the eyes of Jiu King, who had been staying around Jian Wushuang in the void all this while. It stared straight ahead and spotted a drop of dark golden blood in the blood fog. All the drops in the fog were red, except that one. Jiu King acted immediately. It rustled into the blood fog instantly and opened its mouth to catch and swallow the drop of dark golden blood. In the meantime, its tentacles all stood up, ready to clear up the battlefield. It used its tentacles to pick up Jian Wushuang's interspatial ring and mountain river map as well as Dao Yuan's treasures. After that, it gave a long roar towards the sky and then tunneled into the ground. Boom! It swiftly entered the depths of the sinkhole and then the underground world, disappearing from everyone's view. This scene stunned everyone present. Upon seeing that, they reached the same conclusion. Jian Wushuang must be dead. He turned himself into a dense blood fog. There's no chance that he is still alive. His worm beast escaped with all his and Dao Yuan's treasures. All of a sudden, the world became quiet. You bitch, look what you've done. Emperor Xiao was furious and stared at Emperor Lang, who was standing right in front of him. Sadness was evident on the beautiful face of Emperor Lang. Her eyes were vacant, and her attitude was cold regardless of how everyone else looked at her. Despite that, she could not help feeling painful inside. The next moment, when Emperor Xiao came at her and suppressed her, she did not resist at all. Xianxia, I've tried my best to fight this battle today. The agreement between you and me ends here. Goodbye. King Jiu Tong sent a message to Xianxia. After that, he swished his hand to open a wormhole in the void and left through it. At this point in time, this unprecedentedly fierce battle finally concluded. Dao Yuanzi was killed, and Jian Wushuang was believed to be dead. His worm beast was thought to have fled with all their treasures. It ended, someone murmured. What an incredible battle. It's finally over, someone exclaimed. It had too many twists and turns, someone added. Jian Wushuang is such a peerless genius, a once-in-a-generation talent. Unfortunately, he's dead. Someone sighed. What a pity, someone echoed. The crowd burst into exclamations and sighs.